and I think it's incredible.
Well, anyway, let's get on with today's episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm Carl Baldwin, and I'm in England. And my friend here is Rafa Rees, and he is in Transylvania.
Yes, we are
Quite
separated.
exotic.
Yeah.
We are separated. Yes, that's right. And today's episode, which is episode 96, we're going to talk for a little while about mirror life,
Wow.
which I think is you're seeing quite a bit about it in the media recently, don't you think, Rafa?
Yes, it has been talked a lot during the media,
Yeah.
and it has nothing to do with an evil witch.
No.
Talking to a mirror has nothing to do with that for sure.
Nothing. It's not Disney.
Yeah. It's not a witch needing some psychology treatment because spends all day talking to a mirror, so it's not a mirror life like that.
No. It's crazier than that.
For sure.
So Rafa and I were talking about this before we started, and my general view overall about mirror life, the subject, is that it's a bit overhyped. So what is mirror life? So basically, regular life as we know it on this forsaken planet has a certain handedness in the way the atoms and molecules that make up the material of cells and proteins and enzymes and God knows what, they all have a certain what they call handedness.
Handedness.
God,
yes.
That caught me by surprise. Yeah, so they have a certain handedness, and it's kind of referred to as left and right. And basically, all life as we know it has obviously a fixed handedness. It's not random, it's actually fixed, right? And this whole mirror life thing is that it's now been determined that it's theoretically possible to actually create a mirror version of kind of like the opposite version of a regular thing. So like a bacteria, a cell, presumably maybe a virus, although that's the debate's out about whether that's alive or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously you get a lot of speculation about that, what that might mean if it was done. I mean, what did you take away from what you read, Rafa?
Yeah, this chirality, how can we say, handedness in which you have, for example, RNA that has right-handed sugars or proteins that are made from left-handed acids. So having one side and the other, and then decide that, for example, proteins that instead of being left-handed will be right-handed, it could actually have some applications, I think, especially in medicine. And
it's thought.
Yes.
Yeah.
The problem here is that everything remains only theoretical, and we still don't know actually what will be the real impact of it.
That's right. And in fact, the reality is that right now it can't be done. But what scientists, I suppose, are concerned about is that because the potential effects are unknown and therefore potentially catastrophic, I suppose, that what they're concerned about is maybe in 30 years' time, maybe 20 years' time, the tools to actually do this may come about. And we kind of think about progress being a long, slow thing, but I remember a time not that long ago when you couldn't do genetic engineering on your kitchen table, but apparently now you can, right? And you can actually send off on the internet for various items of genetically modified material that you can then use various DIY toolkits to have a play around with genetic engineering, genetic modification. So that has suddenly gone from government lab or research lab to kitchen table in 20 years.
Hmm.
So I suppose it is reasonable that scientists might be concerned about this rate of progress may lead to unintended consequences, shall we say? Do you
Yeah.
think?
Although also there's a lot of scientists saying that actually uh, an interesting question to solve as well with this is if maybe mirror based life could exist anywhere else in the universe, basically in other
Right.
planets or.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's not understood why our evolution, shall we say,
Yeah, exactly.
or uh, I suppose we're talking about the very beginnings here, why nature preferred certain handedness.
Exactly. Why left or why
Because,
right? If maybe the conditions in our planet are the ones who
yeah,
determine it's our own DNA, the one that determine
mm,
uh, left or right.
yeah. But I mean, maybe it was something, really, really, shall we say, a sliding doors situation right at the beginning where it went one way or the other and it might have been completely random.
True. That's also possible, actually.
I suppose. Why not?
Hmm.
Right? If it's a kind of a binary situation,
Yeah.
and you've got to be very careful talking about binary situations these days. But if it was just a binary kind of sliding doors thing, who knows, right? And maybe again, thinking of the far future, if became space explorers, we may come across a planet that appears to be abundant with life.
Yeah.
Um, you know, chlorophyll based plant life and uh, animal life, but
Yeah.
that it is a mirror and it's utterly incompatible with our biology.
Yeah. I think, well, because all this has created a lot of fear as well going around. And to the point that there is some kind of agreement of not to not go further
Yeah,
with the development of the technology to do
like
mirror life, to
a
continue exploring it.
non-proliferation treaty on mirror life.
Yes. I
Of course, the problem is, of course, that there are always organizations, groups, countries, whatever, who think, what proliferation treaty is just an invitation to get stuck in, right?
yeah.
So they just certain people, types, countries, whatever regimes, all they see is potential strategic advantage, right?
Yeah. But
So
not only that, I think it's also the accident part, for example. Like,
uh,
what if they create a bacteria with one intention, but actually, because we don't really know until it's out there, what if actually becomes competitive with our own, uh, let's say, side of life
yeah,
that suddenly gets leaked out?
yeah,
Let's say, as many theories are with what COVID was, that
yeah,
it got leaked out of a lab. That's one of the theories. And basically, if it's a mirror bacteria or a mirror disease that cannot be stopped, or at
yeah.
least that easily stopped, we are facing a really big problem.
True, but and I read similar kind of horror stories,
Hmm. Yeah.
but at the same time, a bit further reading tells you that potentially that is unlikely to happen because of the problem of um, sustaining
Yes.
energy for those kinds of anti or mirror bacteria or whatever,
Hmm.
because if you're a bacteria, you've got cells. Uh, cells are regular cells, shall we say, have a mitochondria in them, every cell,
Yeah.
that creates the energy from creating sugars and whatnot from regular materials, but those regular materials won't be available to those mirror life bacteria. So they would have to be synthetic, wouldn't they? They'd have to be genetically engineered mirror bacteria because they would have to solve that energy problem,
Yeah. That's right.
right? They'd have to solve that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the greater danger is simpler stuff than bacteria, just molecules. Or
Yeah.
and we did some further reading into this stuff, and obviously in regular life you do have left and right-handed stuff going on, right? Um, I just got a WhatsApp then. That's amazing.
Huh?
A random WhatsApp. I don't know whether you heard that, but
No, I didn't get
okay,
it. No.
that's fine. Let's
Yeah.
let's never speak of this again.
Maybe we can hear, I don't know, people screaming in the kitchen, for example, or having music, but no, I don't think so.
That's good soundproofing, Rafa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so as we mentioned earlier, that we do actually live in a world of left and right-handedness. Certain things are left-handed,
Exactly.
certain things are right-handed in terms of their molecular and atomic structure. And we did some further reading, and it was quite interesting that actually, for example, in food technology or food, there is this left and right aspect to certain things, and they have a name which I'm not even going to try and pronounce. But for example, there is a molecule that a food molecule
Yeah.
that in one-handed version it gives the taste of lemons, but the right-handed version gives a completely different taste, completely different. And there are a number of things, for example, aspartame, which is the sugar substitute. In the one handed version, it gives a sensation of sweetness. And in the other handed version, it doesn't taste of
Like
anything.
anything. Yeah. Affects a lot.
Yeah,
That.
which is
Exactly.
weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we are aware of mirror stuff. So it's not like it's this stuff has come out of the blue and everybody's going, oh, shock. Edward Munch's Scream impersonation, mirror life, blah, blah, blah. It
Yeah.
is here. And I think we were talking earlier, you were talking earlier, Rafa, about scientists thinking that it could be very significant at some point um, in that certain therapeutic treatments could be developed that
Uh-huh.
totally hinge on the mirror aspect.
Yes.
And I said to you that we should mention that there is actually a real world example of mirror stuff coming into a therapeutic
Mm-hmm.
world. And it was a tragic one, and it was back in the 70s, and it was the drug thalidomide. Now, I don't know,
Exactly.
younger viewers and listeners may not know what thalidomide is or was. In fact, believe it or not, thalidomide is still manufactured, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's only allowed to be taken under certain conditions. But back in the day, thalidomide was touted as a really great treatment for pregnant women. I think it was to counter, I don't know, some thing
Mm-hmm.
that goes on with pregnant women, and thalidomide was really effective therapeutic treatment that relieved that. Unfortunately, what then happened was later discovered there was a huge spike in birth deformities, and it was
Uh-huh.
actually
Exactly.
and it was traced back to thalidomide.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, huge inquiries, big outcry, lots of tragedy, and that drug was then removed from the market for that purpose. Although, as I say, it's still manufactured and is still used therapeutically in certain situations. But it took many years, in fact, I think decades actually, for the reason why thalidomide did what it did. And basically, thalidomide contained two mirror molecules of thalidomide, the drug molecule, and the, shall we say, the correct chiral version of thalidomide provided the therapeutic effect that was desired,
Mm-hmm.
but unknown to the scientist developers at the time, the mirror one, the bad molecule, was the one that caused the birth defects.
Exactly.
But it was unknown for a long time why it
Why
did
was
what it did.
happening?
Yeah. And so you can see that obviously we've now moved forward like 50 years,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously the tools, the analytical tools for figuring these things out are all largely computerized, obviously, and getting more and more powerful as we speak. And so you can see that you could imagine that if you could tune for mirror versions of this, that, and the other, and then run um, simulations of what
Exactly.
effects they have on human biology, you could see there could be a whole new world of like mirror therapeutics, couldn't you?
Oh yeah, I actually read at some point something related also to cancer. For example, create mirror molecules that could certain variations or types of cancer to be attacking the mirror molecule, basically. That you
Right.
could actually like that help uh,
Yeah. I mean,
with the sickness and get better,
I mean,
basically,
you,
or cure it even.
I mean, you can. I mean, we get it, right?
Yeah, of course.
but it's like everything. We've talked a lot about technology and biotechnology and so on and so forth, and that old thing of double-edged sword stuff.
Hmm.
Dual purpose technologies, be it warfare or anything else,
Of
right?
course.
The if mirror therapeutics become a thing, which potentially they might, then obviously the tools that are required to develop those therapeutics will become, no doubt, incredibly sophisticated and even more powerful as the decades go by.
Hmm.
And obviously, all you're doing is, whilst potentially providing a huge benefit to mankind, you are also dangling a huge temptation in front of the bad actors, right?
Hmm.
To
Exactly.
create something else, right? That's not beneficial. Um, so yeah, it's this same old story, isn't it? That you have a pursuit of kind of benefits for the greater good,
Hmm.
but it's always it's always some minority that wants to take the same, shall we say, thinking and turn it on its head
Yeah.
to to pursue their own warped ideas about how the world should be. Oh, I think we've drifted off into a bit
No,
of
but it was
polemic,
quite okay, actually.
there, Rafa.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but actually, one thing that it's important, for example, to ask our viewers, listeners, is if they think that there could be um, develop a protocol or the necessary measures to be able to continue developing mirror life that could become a great aid for
Yeah,
humanity, basically.
yeah. I totally agree with that. I think the problem is it's a bit like, I think the problem is these kinds of treaties, or non-proliferation treaties, you might call them, only work in an environment of mutual cooperation, respect, understanding, common humanity.
Hmm.
But But we know that that's all very well in the cozy world of, you know, I don't know, let's just say democracies, for want of a better word.
Uh-huh.
I'm not saying that's a perfect definition, but there are always outliers like North Korea with their crypto raids and so on and so forth. Not that crypto is a particularly useful idea, but it's here to stay, right? And then you have rogue nations generating funding for weapons development using using crypto. I mean, yeah, if it wasn't utterly predictable, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, definitely.
So everything gets misused in the end, I think
Hmm.
is the
Yes, or I would say everything has the potential to be misused in the end.
you're not seriously suggesting that there's never been anything that hasn't been ultimately misused.
Hmm,
Nobody's ever respected anything
that's true.
ultimately,
I
right?
start to think about Q-tips, but yeah, they are also abused, I guess.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we've
Yeah.
maybe covered this enough.
Hmm.
It's an interesting area. I think you agree with me that it's probably overhyped currently.
For sure. And I think we need to wait until uh, it's developed more, as I mentioned, the safety protocols, the whole way to work with this technology to have it in a safe way,
Yeah,
tested, and be able to develop properly.
yeah,
Whether if it's abused or not, that's something that comes afterwards, I guess.
I agree.
But the first part is to be able to work with it or to continue working
Maybe,
with it if it's we see that it's actually something worth actually to pursue,
yeah,
which probably in the end is going to be.
yeah. Maybe a treaty would hold back
Hmm,
the bad actors for a period.
maybe not.
Anyway,
What do the viewers think? Because that's an interesting question as well.
yeah, yeah. I mean, again, younger people, it's not going
Yeah,
to affect the likes of you and me, but certainly younger people, it's going to be their world, right?
yeah, definitely.
Anyway, thanks, Rafa. That was very interesting.
Thank you, Carl, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Cool.
All right.